you can imagine that for someone like Marcus Aurelius, temper and anger are going to be things he's really thinking about, concerned about, because he's overseeing an empire of millions of people. The stakes are constantly high. He's overseeing court cases. He's building projects. He's leading an army. In some cases, it's the worst, most frustrating problems that make their way up to his level. And so he does, in Meditations, he talks about sort of the importance of controlling one's temper, of managing our anger, because it was such a critical part of the reality of his life. He says how much more harmful the consequences of anger are than the thing that causes it. What he means is that when you get upset about something, when you get angry about it, what you do in response is often worse than whatever the consequences of the things that caused the problem were in the first place. At one point in Meditations, he actually quotes Euripides, the playwright, who said something like, why give in to anger as if the world would notice? He's basically saying, like, our anger is impotent and totally pointless. And so he talks constantly about anger, and there's a bunch of proven strategies, a bunch of ideas that we get from Marcus Aurelius that I think we can apply in our lives to make us not only less angry, but to reduce the consequences or costs of anger in our life. The first thing we get from Marcus, he says, like, just accept responsibility. Whatever the problem is, whoever caused it, you have to accept responsibility. It's when you're blaming other people, you get really mad. So he says, like, blame yourself or blame no one. So if you've decided early on, I'm not going to make this other people's problem. My wife says to me, like, someone can't make you frustrated, right? You have to own the fact that you don't control other people, but you always control how you respond, right? So at the core of Stoicism is an acceptance of responsibility, right? Which reduces the amount of people that you're able to get angry at. You can't get angry at anyone but yourself. And we obviously know being angry at yourself doesn't accomplish anything. Another idea that the Stoics get about anger, this actually comes from Socrates. He says, like, nobody does wrong on purpose. What he means is that almost nobody, obviously I think Socrates is wrong when it comes to, say, like psychopaths or sociopaths, but the vast majority of people, when they wrong you, when they're rude to you, when they mess something up, when they do things in a way that's different than the way you would do them, it's not because they're trying to hurt you, it's because they think that that's the best thing to do. And so this reminder, and actually Marcus Aurelius opens Meditations with this sort of meditation on all the frustrating things he's going to experience in the upcoming day, but he says the people who do this, they do this because they don't know the difference between right and wrong. They don't know the right way to do things. And so he wants to go through the day with some sympathy for the fact that people are not doing things to upset you personally. It's that your interpretation of them is what's upsetting you. Marcus is obviously a big fan of Epictetus, and what Epictetus would say, it's not things that upset us, it's our judgment about things. So Marcus would try to remind himself that the event itself is objective, right? Somebody just said something to you. We decide to interpret that as rude, or as offensive, or as outrageous, or as an attack, right? So, your car runs out of gas. You decide to tell yourself that that is incredibly unfortunate, that is really annoying, that it's so-and-so's fault. The events are objective. We decide what story we're going to tell ourselves about them. And when we realize this, we can decide not to get upset. We can decide to tell ourselves that it's not a bad thing. Another thing Marcus talks about in Meditations, he talks about reminding yourself when you have done that. So when somebody does something to you that's upsetting, you don't think, how egregious is this? How offensive is this? How annoying is this? How totally uncalled for this is? What a monster this person is. Instead, you want to think about, when have I done something similar to other people? And this is a way to remind yourself of what we were talking about earlier, which is that most people are not doing wrong on purpose. It's like when we mess up, we know that we weren't being a monster, that we weren't intentionally inflicting harm, that it was an accident, that we didn't know better, we didn't even think about it, so on and so forth. And so it's important to remind yourself about this when it comes to other people. I think probably the funniest lesson from Marcus about anger is just this idea of reminding yourself that there's going to be stupid, annoying, incompetent, frustrating people in the world. Marcus says, like, look, when you bump up against someone else's shamelessness, ask yourself, is a world without shamelessness possible? We know that that's not true. Like a certain small percentage of the population is going to suck, they're going to mess up, they're going to be deadbeats, they're going to be annoying. And so what Marcus says is when you bump into one of those people, instead of being surprised, instead of being angry, go, oh, this is just one of those people. If 1% of the population is a bad driver, or if 1% of the population, talks too loudly on their cell phone in restaurants, instead of getting angry when you experience those things, you go, oh, this is that 1 out of 100 people. And in fact, maybe you try to remind yourself that it's good that there's only 1 out of 100 instead of 10 out of 100. I think this is more in line with modern thinking, is the idea of using gratitude as a check against anger. I think it was Tony Robbins who said it's impossible to be angry and grateful at the same time. But when you read Meditations, when you read Marcus Aurelius, you see him constantly remind himself of the beauty of life, the wonder of life, how grateful he should be for things. And in this gratitude, I think he is checking himself against the tendency to be upset at how imperfect things are, or how frustrating they are, or how aggravating they happen to be. And then the final lesson as far as managing our temper, this is the thing that the Stoics return to over and over again, it's kind of their magical cure-all to all problems, is just a meditation on our mortality, on how insignificant we are. Marcus says, it's so silly to be angry about things as if any of this is lasting, right? We're not lasting, the event is not lasting, we're all gonna die soon and no one will remember any of this. And so to hang on to grudges, to rage about something for 3 or 4 days, or even to yell about it for 20 minutes, is in a way like a delusional idea that you know for certain that you have 20 minutes to waste, that you have 2 hours to waste or 2 years to waste. To not talk to your sister for 20 years because she messed up Thanksgiving dinner is to assume that you have 21 years with your sister left to gamble with. To not reconcile with your father or your mother is to say, I know I'll be able to do this before they die or before you die. And that's not true. So memento mori, you could leave life right now, he says, let that determine what you do and say and think. And that's kind of the core ultimate check against anger. So anyone who's in a position of leadership, in a position of power, but also just in a position of powerlessness, anger is going to make things worse, according to the Stoics. And that's why we want to work these strategies to reduce our anger before it takes things that are already bad and makes them worse. Hey, I'm Ryan Holiday, and I have a really important announcement about the newest thing that we've made here at Daily Stoic. It's our course all about conquering your anger. Anger is something that 40% of people say they struggle with every single day, and it's on the rise. Look, life is frustrating. You bump into things that piss you off, and the natural reaction is to get upset. But the Stoics want to help us question that natural response and transcend it. And so no matter your age, your profession, your gender, anger affects your life, and it's costing you something, big or small. And that's why we created this course. And we're going to be using timeless Stoic practices that have been proven over thousands of years to work. We're going to outline strategies from everyone from Marcus Aurelius to Seneca to Abraham Lincoln, and of course, Mr. Rogers. As Marcus would say, the nearer a man becomes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. So I hope you sign up. I hope you make an investment in yourself. These are strategies that will work, and then you'll have less anger in your life and you'll be happier and better and wiser. Hey, thanks for watching Daily Stoic. If you want to learn more about Stoicism, you can check out some of our other videos here. Subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. Keep learning, keep studying, and remember those 4 Stoic virtues: courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom.